They tried to track what moves without footsteps and ended up losing themselves in the search. There's a strange phenomenon that's been quietly happening around certain people, the ones they call chosen ones. Every few months, someone new is sent to figure you out, to study your habits, decode your patterns, maybe even expose the secret behind your peace. But somehow, every single one of them ends up saying the same thing. There's something about this person I can't explain. You see, energy doesn't lie, but it does hide in plain sight. And when your frequency operates on divine instruction, logic collapses. They can map your moves, but they can't trace your essence. They can follow your steps, but never your spirit. You are both seen and unseen, a paradox wrapped in human form. The funny part? They start their mission with confidence, thinking it's a simple case study. But after a few days of observation, they start acting like interns in a supernatural internship they never applied for. They can't sleep, they start overthinking, and next thing you know, they're journaling about vibes and alignment. What they fail to understand is that you were never meant to be understood, only witnessed. The chosen aren't mysterious because they're hiding. They're mysterious because the human mind can't process the frequency of someone who's already stepped outside the system. And that's what terrifies them. Not what you're doing, but who you've become. So when they keep hiring people to track you, they're not just watching your life. They're watching their illusions crumble in real time. And deep down, they know every attempt to study your light only proves one thing. You were never the one being observed. You were the observer all along. Number one, they send spies, but end up finding themselves. It always starts the same way. Someone gets curious about you. Too curious. They're sent, pushed, or persuaded to figure you out, to observe, to analyze, to report what makes you different. At first they think it's just another task. You're a mystery to be solved, a person to be decoded. But what they never see coming is how your energy quietly flips the script. Because no one can study light without seeing their own shadow. When people step into your presence, something in them starts to stir. Their old patterns, their pretenses, the masks they wear, they begin to slip. You don't even say much, but your calm exposes their chaos. Your clarity reflects their confusion. It's not judgment, it's resonance. Your frequency holds up a mirror, and they're forced to meet parts of themselves they've long avoided. The assignment that started as surveillance becomes a self-intervention. That's what they never tell the ones who sent them. They came to take notes on you, but ended up taking notes on their own soul. They were supposed to report back on your motives, your movements, your mindset. But all they can say is, something about them feels different. They can't quite explain it because it's not something the human mind can measure. It's energy, it's awareness, it's truth wrapped in skin. Even when they leave, something lingers. They start seeing the world differently. They question things they used to accept. They crave quiet where they once loved chaos. You didn't preach to them. You didn't convince them. You shifted them. That's what chosen energy does. It awakens, even when it's being watched. So when they send spies to study you, they never really return the same. Because no one can observe transformation without being touched by it. They came looking for your secrets and left discovering their own. Number two, you are not a mystery. You're a mirror. People often mistake your depth for secrecy. They think because you don't overshare, you must be hiding something. But that's not it. You're not complicated. You're clear. It's just that clarity feels confusing to people who live in noise. They look at you and see a reflection of everything they avoid within themselves. And that reflection unsettles them. Your stillness exposes their restlessness. Your honesty confronts their comfort zones. They call you mysterious because it's easier than admitting they don't recognize their own reflection in your energy. You've probably noticed it. How people project their assumptions onto you. They think you're playing games, holding secrets, or trying to stay hard to read. But you're just being. You've reached a level of awareness where you no longer perform to be understood. You live from your truth, not for their interpretation. And because of that, you disrupt the illusion that most people are still trying to maintain. When people look at you, they don't actually see you at first. They see their insecurities bouncing back. Your peace reminds them of their anxiety. Your self-control reminds them of their chaos. Your authenticity challenges their masks. They don't realize that what unsettles them isn't your energy. It's the realization that they've betrayed their own. You are simply the mirror, and mirrors don't lie. That's why many struggle to stay around you for long. You don't even have to speak. Your presence alone reveals truths that people would rather avoid. It's not that you're distant, you're just real, and realness has become rare. You make people confront the parts of themselves they keep buried under distraction and ego. So no, you're not a mystery to be solved. You're a reflection to be faced. And that's why they can't fully decode you. They're not ready to see themselves that clearly yet. Number 3, every investigator becomes an admirer. It always starts with skepticism. They don't believe the stories they've heard about you, so they decide to see for themselves. They approach you with suspicion, watching your every move, expecting to find flaws, contradictions, or some hidden agenda. But instead of finding something fake, they find something they didn't expect: consistency. You are exactly who you appear to be, whether anyone's watching or not. That kind of authenticity disarms people. It's rare, almost uncomfortable, because most are used to masks, not truth. They come thinking you're performing, but what throws them off is that you're not performing at all. You don't try to impress or convince. You don't bend to fit in or exaggerate to be seen. You just are. That quiet confidence unsettles them at first. Then slowly, it starts to intrigue them. The same energy they were sent to question becomes the very thing they begin to respect. Because there's power in being unapologetically yourself in a world that profits off pretending. The more they observe you, the more they realize there's no act, no hidden script, just alignment. You live with purpose, not pressure. You move with intention, not impulse. And that makes them start questioning themselves. How can someone be so centered in a world that's always spinning? How can someone walk through storms without losing balance? They came to gather evidence, but what they collect instead is insight. They learn more about themselves through watching you than they ever could through studying anyone else. Eventually, their skepticism softens into quiet respect. The investigation turns into inspiration. They start borrowing fragments of your peace, your focus, your self-control. They start admiring what they once doubted, because deep down they realize you're not lucky, you're disciplined. You didn't fake your light, you fought for it. And anyone who truly observes you long enough comes to the same conclusion. You're not trying to be admired, but you can't help but earn it. Number 4, your frequency can't be fabricated. People can mimic your style, your expressions, even the way you move, but they can never replicate your frequency. They study your rhythm, your glow, your presence, thinking that if they copy enough of your surface, they'll access your depth. But energy doesn't work that way. What flows from authenticity can't be reproduced through imitation. They can wear the same words, but they'll always sound hollow because the vibration behind them isn't real. Your frequency was earned, not through status or training, but through experience. Through the nights you had to rebuild yourself silently. Through the times you chose growth instead of revenge, solitude instead of noise, truth instead of comfort. That process gave your energy its tone. It's not charisma, it's consciousness. It's not charm, it's clarity. And no one can fake what was forged in transformation. That's why imitation always falls flat. They can study your outer behavior, but they can't copy your inner calibration. You operate from alignment, not attention. You move from intuition, not instruction. It's not what you do, it's where you're doing it from. People feel that difference, even if they can't explain it. They may try to deny it, but energy doesn't lie. You either carry it or you don't. Some will even grow frustrated trying to become you, not realizing they were never supposed to. They chase your light instead of cultivating their own, but light borrowed never lasts. What's divine can't be duplicated because divinity isn't a design. It's a frequency born out of authenticity. That's what sets you apart. You didn't build your aura to be admired. You built it to survive. So when they copy your tone and your timing, but never quite match your energy, it's not arrogance to know why, it's awareness. They're echoing your sound, but you're the one carrying the source. Number 5, they study you, but you move like spirit. People think they can figure you out by watching what you do. They analyze your habits, your choices, your silences, trying to predict your next move as if you're playing a game they can map. But you don't move from logic alone. You move from guidance. You don't follow formulas. You follow flow. That's why no one can truly track you. One moment you're still, the next you're shifting directions with purpose that makes no sense to anyone but you. You move by alignment, not approval. They keep expecting patterns, but you don't live in cycles. You live in seasons. You know when it's time to show up, when to stay silent, when to move on, and when to let go. Nothing about you is predictable because your compass isn't external. You don't chase opportunities, you sense them. You don't react to pressure, you respond to purpose. And that's what confuses the ones trying to study you. They expect repetition, but your path keeps rewriting itself through revelation. When your steps are led by intuition, people mistake it for mystery. They think you're hiding, but you're just tuned in. You've learned that movement doesn't always mean motion. Sometimes it means stillness. Sometimes disappearing isn't running away, it's returning to clarity. That's what makes you so hard to trace. You're not leaving breadcrumbs, you're leaving vibrations, and not everyone can feel them. They call it inconsistency, but it's evolution. You don't stay in places where your energy no longer fits. You don't explain your exits or announce your arrivals. You just move when spirit says move, and by the time they realize what shifted, you've already become someone new. That's why they can't pin you down. You're not playing the game, you're following the current. You're not running from them, you're rising beyond reach. Number 6, every report comes back confused. They keep trying to figure you out like you're a case to be solved. They want proof, numbers, explanations, something logical that explains why you carry the energy you do. But every time someone tries to define you, they end up more lost than when they started. Because you don't operate on logic alone. You move from depth. You don't live by facts, you live by frequency. And frequency can't be charted on a graph. They want to measure your calm, but they can't find where it comes from. They want to analyze your confidence, but they can't pinpoint the source. You don't fit their categories, because your strength doesn't come from what's seen. It comes from what's settled within you. You're not built by attention, validation, or control. You're sustained by something sacred, that inner stillness that can't be faked. And that's exactly what leaves them scratching their heads. They send observers expecting a pattern, but what they find is presence. They write down notes, but none of it explains why your silence speaks louder than a speech, or why your energy fills a room even when you say nothing. They look for methods, but you live from meaning. They look for structure, but you move with spirit. They want cause and effect, but all they find is essence. That's why every report ends the same way, with confusion. Because you can't measure alignment, you can only feel it. You can't document purpose, you can only witness it. You're proof that some things can't be studied. They have to be experienced. So while they're trying to decode you, they end up decoding themselves instead. Because truth isn't something that can be written down in data. It's something that rearranges you from the inside out. And that's exactly what you do to them. Number 7, you're their case study in consciousness. You've become their unspoken experiment, the living proof that there's something beyond what they can control, predict, or explain. They gather experts, observers, and skeptics, trying to break you down into logic. They analyze your choices, your resilience, your peace, as if there must be some hidden formula behind it, but the truth is you're powered by something they can't quantify: alignment. You're not surviving by luck or coincidence. You're guided by purpose. And purpose doesn't fit neatly into charts, theories, or analysis reports. They want to understand how you keep rising after every fall, how you manage to stay centered in chaos, how your intuition always seems one step ahead. But that's what confuses them. You're not operating from intellect, you're operating from awareness. You listen inwardly in a world that only trusts what it can measure outwardly. You move from conviction while everyone else moves from calculation. They're watching a human being guided by something they can't program, and that breaks their logic apart. The systems built on control, social, psychological, even spiritual, rely on predictability. They need patterns to maintain power. But you are an exception. You don't respond the way they expect. You don't bend under pressure. You don't seek permission to exist in truth. You've stepped outside the loop of manipulation and scarcity, and that makes you unpredictable, and therefore uncontrollable. That's why they keep watching you. You represent proof that inner awareness is stronger than external systems. You embody what they can't replicate with science or structure: self-realization. You've become evidence that a person aligned with purpose operates on a higher frequency that can't be influenced or corrupted. And that terrifies them because it means all their rules, their pressure, and their power games crumble the moment someone wakes up. You're not their subject. You're their silent revelation that consciousness always wins. Number 8. Their curiosity is just fear in disguise. They say they're just curious about you, fascinated, intrigued, wanting to understand what makes you different. But deep down, it's not admiration driving them. It's discomfort. Your energy unsettles something inside them. You don't fit their definitions, and that scares them. So they disguise their fear as curiosity. They study you not because they want to grow with you, but because they want to figure out how to neutralize what they can't control. It's not love of truth, it's fear of power they can't claim. You can feel it when they talk to you. That hidden tension behind their questions. They're not listening to connect. They're listening to dissect. They want to find the catch, the flaw, the weakness that explains why someone like you can walk in peace when they're constantly at war within themselves. But they never find it, because your stability doesn't come from ego. It comes from grounding. You're not trying to be powerful. You're just aligned, and that's what they can't handle. They want to contain what you represent, freedom, because freedom challenges every illusion they've built their identity on. You're proof that someone can live without validation, thrive without permission, and succeed without compromise. That's threatening to anyone who relies on control, manipulation, or hierarchy to feel secure. They'd rather study your light than face why they've dimmed their own. So they poke, they question, they follow, hoping to find a limit. But there isn't one. You move like air, felt but never held. Their fear keeps them trying, but your essence keeps slipping through their grasp. because what's infinite can't be measured, managed, or mimicked. You weren't meant to fit inside their comfort zones, and the more they try to contain you, the more they're forced to confront the truth they're afraid of, that your existence alone is proof that liberation is possible. Number 9, they can't trap what's already free. People try to control what they don't understand, and you've become a challenge to their system of influence. They can't manipulate you the way they do others, because you no longer depend on the same things they use as bait: approval, attention, or belonging. They study you, test you, even provoke you, hoping to trigger a reaction they can use to define or discredit you. But your stillness disarms them. You don't chase arguments, validation, or applause. You've outgrown the emotional games that keep most people bound. That's why their surveillance always fails. They think control comes from monitoring someone's moves, but your power doesn't live in movement. It lives in state. You operate from vibration, not reaction. You don't get pulled into chaos because you know your energy is your most valuable boundary. They send people to observe, but all they see is someone who refuses to perform. You don't fight for space, you embody it. You don't defend your peace, you are peace. They can't trap you because you no longer need their systems to validate your worth. The moment you stopped needing to be understood, you became untouchable. You stopped playing tug of war with people's projections and started choosing presence instead. That's a language they can't decode: stillness. Your freedom isn't rebellion, it's realization. You realize you don't owe the world constant explanations or emotional accessibility. You learned that not every confrontation deserves your energy, and not every silence needs to be broken. You move with awareness, not impulse. And because of that, they can't predict, provoke, or possess you. They think freedom is about distance, but yours is about detachment, not from life, but from control. You move through the world unbothered, unbound, and unowned. And that's why they can't trap you. You can't cage someone who no longer trades their energy for validation. You've already broken free from the only prison that ever mattered: needing to be understood. Number 10, they thought you were playing a role, then realized you're living your truth. At first, people think you're acting. They assume your calm is calculated, your confidence rehearsed, your silence strategic. They've seen so many masks in this world that authenticity now looks suspicious. So when someone like you shows up, grounded, certain, and at peace with who you are, their minds immediately go searching for a hidden agenda. They don't understand that some people aren't performing. They've just finally become real. You're not trying to impress anyone or play a character that fits society's script. You've outgrown the need for validation because you've already met yourself. That level of self-awareness unsettles those who still build their identity around perception. They expect manipulation, not honesty. They expect strategy, not sincerity. And when they realize that what they thought was a persona is actually your presence, it shakes their sense of reality. Your stillness is what exposes them. You don't compete for attention or argue to prove your worth. You simply exist in truth, and that's powerful in a world addicted to pretense. People used to constant performance can't handle genuine energy. It doesn't play by their rules. They're used to people who act humble to look wise or act kind to gain leverage. But you don't act. You embody. You live by alignment, not appearance. Eventually they start to see the difference. They notice your consistency, your peace that doesn't waver when no one's watching. They realize that your words match your energy and your actions match your values. That's when it hits them. This isn't performance. This is principle. You're not pretending to be strong. You've simply healed. You're not detached. You're disciplined. And that's what truly disarms them. Realizing that while everyone else is auditioning for roles, you've already accepted your truth. You're not playing a part in their world. You've built your own stage, and you stand on it without pretending. Number 11. They come for answers, but leave with reverence. People approach you with all kinds of intentions: curiosity, doubt, even quiet competition. They come armed with questions, ready to analyze you, to challenge you, to find the cracks in your calm. They expect to meet another person playing wise, pretending grounded, wearing peace like fashion. But that's not what they find. What they meet instead is truth. Raw, quiet, unpolished truth. And it shakes them in a way they can't quite explain. You don't try to convince anyone of who you are. You don't over-explain or perform your depth. You let your energy speak, and that alone does the work. Something about your presence forces reflection. People realize mid-conversation that they're not just talking to you. They're hearing themselves more clearly than ever before. Your energy doesn't just fill space, it rearranges it. That's why no one leaves you the same. Even those who come to test you end up humbled. They sense a calm they can't imitate, a certainty that doesn't come from ego. You carry the kind of balance that can't be faked, because it's been earned through breaking, healing, and returning to self. And that's what disarms them. They came for answers about you, but end up finding revelations about themselves. You become a mirror, but one that reflects possibility instead of pain. That's why so many can't explain their encounters with you. Because what they experienced wasn't just conversation, it was consciousness. They felt seen without being judged, challenged without being attacked, understood without needing to perform. That's a sacred exchange, and it leaves an imprint. They entered as observers, but left as believers, not in you as a person, but in the reality of energy, alignment, and truth. Because authenticity has a frequency that can't be denied, and once someone feels it, they never forget it. They came searching for evidence, but what they found was presence, and that changed everything. Number 12, they realize you're not guarded, you're guided. People often mistake your silence for secrecy. They assume you're hiding something, being overly private, or trying to stay mysterious. But what they fail to see is that your quietness isn't about fear, it's about respect. You've learned that not every part of your journey deserves an audience. What they interpret as walls are actually boundaries, and those boundaries were built through wisdom, not wounds. You're not guarded to protect your ego. You're guided to protect your purpose. You've discovered that energy is sacred. Not every revelation deserves a reaction, and not every vision deserves validation. You move differently because you've seen how oversharing can invite confusion, how speaking too soon can drain divine timing. So you speak when led, not when pressured. You reveal when aligned, not when expected. That kind of discipline confuses people who are used to impulsive living. They think you're withholding, but really, you're waiting on instruction, and that patience is your power. Your choices are not random. They're rooted in something higher than logic. You don't move to prove, you move with purpose. Every step you take is intentional, even when others don't understand it. You've reached a level of trust with your intuition where silence isn't avoidance, it's obedience. You don't rush to explain because your clarity doesn't need confirmation. And slowly, people begin to notice. They see how your timing always seems divine, how everything you touch unfolds smoothly, even when it looked delayed. That's when it clicks for them. You're not cautious, you're connected. You don't move from fear of loss, but from faith in alignment. You're not protecting secrets, you're protecting sacred instructions. They came expecting mystery, but found mastery. Because the truth is, you're not hiding anything. You're simply moving with divine rhythm. You're not guarded, you're guided. And that makes all the difference. Number 13, they find power, but not the kind they expected. People come toward you expecting a contest, some kind of power struggle where one must outshine or outsmart the other. They're used to power looking loud, demanding and controlling, so when they meet you, they brace themselves for ego. They expect strategy, manipulation, or intimidation, but instead they find calm, the kind that doesn't need to raise its voice to be felt. It throws them off balance because you carry authority without aggression. You don't need to dominate people to prove strength. Your peace is the proof. You've outgrown the version of power that feeds on control. You've learned that true power isn't about being above anyone. It's about being aligned within yourself. That's why your presence feels steady, not forceful. You don't try to take from others. You elevate the space you enter. You don't push energy. You redirect it. And that's what unsettles those who measure power through hierarchy. You remind them that influence doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and still everything shifts. They come expecting competition, but end up feeling conviction. Your power isn't in your words, it's in your energy. You don't conquer through fear. You transform through presence. Even without trying, you convert tension into understanding, chaos into clarity, and ego into awareness. That's a kind of power most people can't comprehend because it's not performance, it's vibration. Soon they start realizing you're not trying to win anything. You're not after control, you're after consciousness. Your strength doesn't come from overpowering people, it comes from mastering yourself. You've learned how to move through life without letting life move through you. And that's what they didn't expect. They came looking for tactics but found truth. They came to test your will but found peace that can't be shaken. Because the real power isn't in dominance, it's in direction. You don't conquer people. You convert energy. Number 14, they finally admit you're not the target. You're the test. By the time people realize what's happening, it's too late. They came thinking they were observing you, analyzing you, maybe even trying to find leverage. They assumed the spotlight was on your moves, your decisions, your energy. But the truth is, you were never the subject of scrutiny. They were. Every person sent your way becomes a mirror of their own consciousness. Your presence tests patience, clarity, and integrity in ways they don't understand. They believe they are the hunters, but in reality, they are being measured. Your energy doesn't just exist, it reflects. It shows them what they carry inside: honesty or deceit, alignment or distraction, fear or courage. No words are necessary. You don't have to expose them, confront them, or manipulate them. Their response to your light does the work for you. They reveal themselves simply by being in your orbit. Some crumble under the pressure of authenticity. Some rise to meet it, and some leave, silently aware that they weren't ready for what they came to witness. This isn't arrogance, it's inevitability. People encounter certain frequencies and are forced to face truths they've long ignored. Your clarity becomes the test they never asked for. You don't chase, provoke, or strategize. You move from alignment, and in doing so, your energy becomes a standard. Their ability to engage with it honestly shows them exactly where they stand, in their shadow or in their light. The ones who return with reports, stories, and analyses fail to see the lesson. They think the target was you, but deep down, everyone knows the real examination isn't on your life. It's on theirs. Their intentions, reactions, and compromises are the real report cards. And when they finally admit it, they leave with understanding, humility, or sometimes a quiet reverence. You were never the mystery to solve. You were the catalyst that showed them who they truly are. Conclusion: what all of this reveals is undeniable. Being a chosen one isn't about secrecy or superiority. It's about alignment. Every observer, every skeptic, every person sent to study you ends up confronting a truth they weren't prepared for. They think they're watching you, but you're watching them. You move with purpose, respond with clarity, and exist with a presence that can't be duplicated or contained. Your energy doesn't just influence, it transforms. You're not a mystery to be solved, a game to be played, or a puzzle to be cracked. You are a mirror, a frequency, a living testament to what happens when someone refuses to bend to expectation and instead follows their truth. People may try to measure you, mimic you, or control you, but all they end up doing is discovering their own limitations, confronting their own shadows, and sometimes awakening to their own potential. Your existence is both the standard and the revelation. You don't chase, you don't perform, you don't compete. You simply are. And in simply being, you leave marks on minds and shifts in consciousness that no report, analysis, or tactic could ever capture. So, for those who find themselves in your orbit, it's a test, a mirror, and a lesson. And for you, it's proof. Your energy is powerful, sacred, and uncontainable. This is the reality of the chosen, untraceable, untouchable, and infinitely aligned with the currents of life that most can't even perceive. If this resonated with you, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss these insights. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this truth today. Your energy matters, and together, we keep awakening to the power within. Stay blessed always.